Could a spark of your love light a fire in me? Just a spark, while my cold heart is the living that breathes.
Hello and welcome back. This is Pastor Chris Thompson with your weekly devotional. If this is your first time with us, what you're watching is a 5 or so minute devotional that typically goes over what we're going to be discussing on Sunday morning right here at Christ Central. Our services are at 11 a.m. We're in the city of Spokane, Washington at 19 West Shannon. You are invited to join us in person, of course, but we know not everybody can be here. In fact, some people from our fellowship can't be here every week. And so this is a way to keep us all connected. If you're not coming to church with us here, we encourage you to find a fellowship where you can. Today's passage comes out of the book of Mark. We're in Mark chapter 8. We're going from verses 22 through 26. Now, that does seem a little short to you. Don't worry, there's a lot to talk about. This passage is normally considered one of the difficult passages in the New Testament, and I'll explain why. Christ is in Bethsaida, and this man is brought to him by the man's friends, and he is blind. And this man wants to be healed. So Christ does a couple things that are very curious. One is he leads him out of the city. He won't do the healing in town for one reason or another, and there's a lot of debate as to why. So he leads him out of town, and then he does something that he's done before, which he takes a little bit of spittle from his mouth, puts it in the man's eyes, and then asks him, "Can you see?" The man says something very curious. He says, I see that there are men walking as if they're trees. And so you get this imagery of someone who has a little bit of sight restored, but not full healing. Then Christ tells the man, "I'm going to touch you now and bring full healing." And he touches him and does bring that complete and total healing. Now, the reason this is so curious is that this is the only time recorded in all of the Gospels where Christ heals someone twice, because the first time didn't heal completely. Not only is that true, this is the only time this particular miracle is recorded in any of the 4 Gospels. So people have really struggled with what that means. Was Christ's power diminished? Was the man's faith diminished? A lot of people believe it actually, the real issue is discussed in Matthew chapter 11, and I'll read it real quick. It says, "Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida!" Remember, that's where he is. "For if the miracles that were performed in you had performed in Tyre and Sodom, they would have been repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I tell you, it'll be more bearable for Tyre and Sidon on the day of judgment than for you." A lot of people point to this and say that actual city has been condemned because Christ did so much, and the people didn't even give him a second glance. Still others believe that the man in question was leaning so heavily on the faith of his friends and not on his own personal relationship. And so because of that, the healing came slowly. Now, if I were to give you, this is exactly what it means, it would only be conjecture. And what that means is that we wouldn't have an answer from this book, the only one that actually matters. So because of that, I have a slightly different application for myself and for you at home. Number one, Christ doesn't do things the same way all the time. And we have a whole bunch of examples. If you're with us Sunday, we'll go over a number of them. But that also means for us, the way God works in the life of my friend or my family member doesn't mean it's going to work exactly the same way, in exactly the same time, in exactly the same process that he does with me, and vice versa. The second application I think we have is that your personal spiritual growth and my personal spiritual growth is going to take time. So I'm going to ask this week, as I ask every week, for you to do a thing. This week's thing is maybe not a lot of fun. And that is to ask God to show you what parts of your life in your spiritual walk are you not being patient enough with. If God is saying yes to your prayer request, but maybe it's yes, but not today. Maybe it's a month from today, or 6 months from today, or a year from today. How do you handle that? How do I handle it? Oftentimes, real change in a person's life takes real time. Just because God answered your prayer and just because your life changed immediately on one issue doesn't mean it's going to happen that way on every issue. So when you enter your prayer closet this week, I encourage you to not give up when this process of sanctification, this process of you changing over time, becoming more and more like the Father as He promised, takes a little longer than we were hoping for. I know it certainly does for me. Well, I thank you very much for hanging out with us. And as I've already mentioned, if you do not have a place to worship this weekend, you're more than welcome to come worship at our place at 19 West Shannon. That is Christ Central Spokane. If you can't make it, we pray you find a place to worship this weekend. God bless you all.
When I breathe in hope and breathe in grace and breathe